You can deploy as a hardware or you can deploy as a virtual machines. So basically on enterprise, if we talk about any enterprise, so in enterprise, they usually preferred hardware. Okay. And the reason about the hardware, it has a more processing power. Okay. And this is the especially designed by the firewall vendor. So they have all the compatibility, if I can say. They understand all the compatibility of the Palo Alto, and hence any enterprises for their on-premises protection, they preferred Palo Alto as a hardware. So if we talk about the hardware, there are different types of hardware that is offered by the Palo Alto. So 4K series, 2K series, 500 series, even there is 220 series. Those are hardware. So here you can see there are different series of the firewall, right? And different series is providing a different throughput, you can see. So if we talk about the PA4060, about this model, so it is going to provide you 10 Gbps firewalling. That means it would be able to process 10 Gbps 10 Gbps data at a time, right? So it's a 10 Gbps firewalling and 5 Gbps with the threat prevention. So if you enable threat prevention, so it would be processing 5 Gbps traffic. Okay. There is a you can see there is a you can create around 20 lakh connections over here on a Palo Alto at a time. So it's supporting 2 sessions, and it has a 4x FP. That means SFP basically. So 4x SFP, it is providing 10 gig, and then for SFP for 1 GB, 1 gig input output. So basically this is good firewall, right? And you can see there are other series of the firewall. So different series had a different have a different capability. Okay. Similarly, you have this is the 4K series. Then we have 2K series, and 2K series is providing 1 Gbps firewalling, 500 Mbps when you enable threat protection. Okay, 250,000 sessions at a time it can create, and 16 ports for the copper gigabit and 4 SFP interfaces. So SFP interface is basically providing you freedom so that you can if you have 1 Gbps of interface, so you can use 1 Gbps SFP. If you have 10 Gbps of interface, so you can use 10 Gbps SFP. So this is a benefit when you are using SFP. Now coming to next one, we have a 300 cases of firewall, and in 300 series you can see, sorry, 3K series, 3000 series, you can see it is providing 4 Gbps firewalling throughput with app ID enabled, and 2 Gbps threat prevention throughput, 500 Mbps it is providing throughput when you have IPsec enabled. Okay, and it can create 500,000 maximum session at a time. 15,000 new session per second it can create, and 20,000 IPsec VPN tunnels it can create. Sorry, 2,000, not 20,000. 2,000 IPsec VPN tunnel it can create. Okay, and 2000 SSL user can connect. So, we have two types of VPN, remote access and IPsec VPN. So IPsec is side-to-side VPN. So you can create 2000 IPsec VPN, right? And SSL user, like people who is working from home. So remote user, remote session, remote VPN session, it can support up to 2000. You can create 10 virtual routers within the firewall, okay? And 6 virtual system you can support. So base is 1, okay? And maximum is, base is 1, maximum virtual system you can create 6. 40 security zones you can create, and 5,000 maximum number of policy rules you can create within this series. So this is about 3K series about Firewall. Any questions so far?
No question.
Okay,
No.
all right. Okay. Moving to next one, 5K series. So this is I can say this is the enterprise series of the firewall, and in this series firewall, it is providing you 10 Gbps firewalling. Sorry, 20 Gbps 20 Gbps firewalling, 10 Gbps threat prevention it can provide, 4 Gbps IPsec throughput it can provide, 20,000 SSL VPN connection you can create, and it is providing around 40 100,000 sessions. Okay, so it is supporting too much session, and up to 225 VCs you can create. Virtual firewall you can create within this firewall, and that is up to 225. Okay, for SFP, it is supporting 10 Gbps, and 8 SFP is supporting 1 Mbps, and 12 interfaces is supporting 1 Gbps. So these are the fixed interface which you are seeing here, and 8 SFP is these are the SFP based interfaces. So this is basically enterprise series, and in most of the data center you will see this series of the firewall. Now, so we have different types of high end model, right? Okay, you can purchase depending on which high end model you want. It has the hot swappable fan and power supplies. Okay, it has a dual solid state drives, dedicated HA and management interface, and it's a 2U standard racks mount from factor. So these about the high end model. All right, guys. Now we will talk about 2K series. So in 2K series of the firewall, it is providing 100 Mbps firewalling throughput with app ID enabled. So when you enable app ID, it is going to provide you 100 Mbps firewall throughput. If you enable threat prevention as well, so with threat prevention, it is providing 50 Mbps throughput. And if you enable IPsec, then it is going to provide 50 Mbps for the IPsec VPN throughput. Maximum you can create 64,000 of maximum sessions you can create, and 1K new session per second you can create. So this is also good firewall because it is supporting 100 VPN. 25 IPsec VPN you can create, and you can create a tunnel interface as well. Now moving to next one about SSL VPN. So it is providing you 25 SSL VPN user. Okay, and 3 virtual routers you can create within this, and 10 security zones you can create. Maximum number of policy you can create up to 250. So this is about 2K series firewall. Now, as we know that Palo Alto is also going to provide you Panorama. So there are different model of the Panorama as well. Now we are talking about M100 Panorama. This allow you to deploy Panorama management and logging facility. So this is the M100 series of the Panorama device, and in this Panorama device you can install the Panorama operating system. Plus it is going to provide you logging as well, so all the logs can be stored on Panorama as well. You can deploy the Panorama as a virtual appliance, so you can deploy on a VMware. Okay, so or you can deploy on cloud, or you can deploy on your on premises. Okay, now security subscription. Now we are talking about here licensing. So if you want to use a firewall, right, Palo Alto firewall, so definitely you need to enable some licenses. What all the licenses you need to enable? You need to enable the threat prevention. So if you enable this license, so what would happen? IPS license would get updated, upgrade, activated. So firewall would be able to scan any traffic and would be able to take the decision whether it should be allowed or it should be denied. So this is IPS license. Then you can enable, URL filtering licenses. So URL filtering a license is going to provide here full proxy. So basically, when you enable URL filtering, so firewall would be able to prevent, means allow or deny URL accordingly. Now, the next license you can enable global protect license. So this is a VPN license. And basically this is Ssl VPN license, which is known as a global protect. So when you enable global protect license, so firewall would be able to provide a VPN support. Okay. So I hope you guys aware about Ssl VPN. If not, then I would let you know. Yeah. Aware
Yeah,
about this? Yeah. Okay, great. So this is the global protect license. Now, when we talk about the wildfire, so this is kind of sandboxing. So when you enable wildfire, so this is a sandboxing. So how many of you know about the sandboxing? This is sandboxing feature. So basically, this is for the advanced threat protection. Okay, so basically, if you know about the threat, how threat is working, so how firewall is able to protect from any particular threat. So basically, firewall has a signature, right, about particular threat. So based on that, firewall is able to detect that this is threat, and if that signature is matching and that signature is triggered, so firewall would be able to identify that someone is attacking in your network, right? Based on that, firewall is going to deny that traffic. But let's say, have you heard about the 0-day attack? 0-day attack?
no.
Yeah, yeah. So there is some kind of attack is known as a 0-day attack. So suppose if there is any malicious virus that's a newly came, and for that virus or for that threat, there is no signature. So if there is no signature about that threat, so firewall won't be able to protect that. Okay. So to mitigate this issue, 0-day attack, basically what company is doing now, they are creating a sandboxing, some kind of sandboxing. So in sandboxing, what they used to do, in sandboxing, they used to deploy an infrastructure where they runs multiple machines. Okay. So in sandboxing, they used to deploy some infrastructure on their on premises, on premises or on cloud. So there would be some machines. There would be some XP machines. There would be some Windows machine. There should be some Linux machine. There should be SQL server, database server, etc. Now, what happening when any file is coming in your network and that file is not known, that's the signature is not there, or that's the checksum value is not there, so firewall would detect that this kind of file is malicious, right? This kind of file is malicious or not, it is not able to take the decision. But what it is doing, firewall is sending that traffic to the sandboxing, and in sandboxing what happened, the file get extract on this sandbox environment. Okay, this is separate environment. So that file would extract here, and here the behavior of the file would be notified. So if file is doing any malicious kind of things on XV, Windows, database, web server, anywhere, okay, so this sandbox is going to report that this file is malicious. Else, if it is not doing any malicious thing, so it is going to say that this file is true. So based on that, firewall would be able to take the decision whether that file would be allowed or not. So if this is true, there is no malicious behavior of the file, so it is going to say that, okay, firewall, you can allow this particular file. Else, if this is malicious, okay, so it is going to say that don't allow this particular file. So Palo Alto is going to provide you Wildfire feature. This is the feature where you can enable the sandboxing. Basically, this Wildfire is set up on the Palo Alto cloud. Okay. So now what is happening actually? Your firewall would always, if you have a firewall, so this firewall would be always connected to the Wildfire network, and this is on the cloud actually. Cloud, and this cloud is Palo Alto cloud. This is Palo Alto cloud. So this would be on Palo Alto Cloud. So whenever any new file is coming, right, and for that file there is no signature, okay. So what Firewall do? It will send that file over to the cloud on the sandboxing environment. On sandboxing environment, this would be evaluated, and if that file is good to go, so sandbox would say, okay, this should be allowed, else it should be denied. So that's how Wildfire works. So if you want to subscribe this Wildfire, that means Palo Alto Sandboxing, so you just need to purchase a Wildfire license, otherwise you cannot. Okay, any question?
Hi, Mithilesh Mudasa.
Yeah, Madhus.
Uh, I'm not sure. Have you come through recently? Like, if you try to access Google Chrome, it says "Oh snap" because your antivirus is not updated. So this is related to the sandbox.
No, it's a different one. So
Okay.
basically, if that kind of things is known as a posture checking, right? That's known as a posture checking. Here it is not checking a posture. Here is checking the file. It's a behavior. Okay. So if your antivirus is not updated, that's a different thing. Some device is checking the posture of your machine. Antivirus is not updated. Your Windows is not up to date. You are running pirated window or something like that. So that is kind of posture checking, right? That Chrome is doing or any other VPN software is doing, right? On software itself, there is a feature that is used to check that your antivirus is latest, updated or not. So that thing is known as a posture checking. The sandboxing is a bit different. Sandboxing is where behavior of the particular file or whatever the content is coming to your firewall, for that content, if there is no signature, then firewall is sending that data towards the sandbox, and in sandbox it is checking the behavior of your file, what it is doing on Windows machine, how much it is doing damage. Okay, all those things it is checking on the sandbox.
Okay, Mithilesh, thanks for that. I was just wondering because I googled that, so
Hmm.
it was like not now, but at the time of issue. So
Hmm.
there was some for a workaround. You can add no sandbox in that shortcut, so
Yeah,
your Google Chrome will work. So I was relating with that thing. That's okay. Thank you.
yeah. So basically that term sandbox, Google say, but that is actually not a sandbox. That's a different thing. However,
Okay.
okay. So here Wildfire is a kind of pure sandbox. Okay, and there are different product about the sandbox. So Palo Alto has a Wildfire, and Microsoft has a Azure ATP. So MS has a Azure ADP. ATP. ATP is known as a Advanced Threat Protection. So this is also sandbox on the Microsoft Azure. So if you guys from the Microsoft background, so you must be knowing this. This is the Azure ATP where sandboxing can be done. Yeah. And other thing, I just have you heard about the virus total? Anyone? Virus total. So virus total is what? It is kind of sandboxing. You used to submit some sample there if you feel that this file is suspicious, okay? And you used to submit the sample there on a virus total, okay? And virus total is going to take the decision that this is malicious or not. So that is kind of sandboxing. They use that sample on their lab. They used to check that whether that file is doing any malicious uh, activities, or it's a simple. So if it is a malicious activity, so obviously file should get blocked. They used to generate the hash for that, and those hash would be updated on your firewall. Yeah. So that's all about the sandboxing. So if you want to use all these features, so you need to enable the you need to subscribe the Wildfire subscription. Let me clear all these. Let's move to next one. Now, Let's talk about the flows logic. So this is the flow logic which we have talked yesterday. So whenever firewall is receiving any packets, so it is doing initial packet processing. In initial packet processing, it is checking source zones, source address plus source user ID. So in source zone, it is checking whether this traffic is coming from which zone, what is the source IP, and if there is any user ID associated with on that packet or not. So user ID basically you can enable on the firewall user ID feature when it would be able to detect the user. Suppose you are browsing anything, right? And let's say you are Aditya and you are trying to browse anything, right? So on the firewall, you can enable the user ID. So whenever you would be browsing anything, you should be authenticate yourself. Authentication may be transparent or authentication maybe it is redirecting on some captive portal where you need to put username password manually. So all these things checked on initial packet processing. After doing checking all these things, source zone and address, user ID, etc., it is sending checking for the packet for policy based forwarding. Okay, so in policy based forwarding, it is checking whether this traffic should be routed through the any special route or it should be as usual, it should be forward. So if there is no policy based forwarding on the packet, so it is going to check the destination zone, and then it is going to evaluate the net policy that packet required netting or not. Okay, so all these things check on our initial packet processing. After this, the packet would go for the security pre-policy checks. So in security pre-policy check, it would check the services for which I mean the traffic for which it is going for, whether those port is allowed or not. So if it is allowed, so it would create a session. So once session created, it is going to check for the application. Here in application, it is going to check for the encryption of the traffic is encrypted or not. It is checking whether traffic required a decryption policy or not. So if see, firewall could could forward the traffic or firewall could receive the traffic as well. So when any traffic is forwarding, so it would check on this encryption are required or not. If it is receiving the packet, so it is going to check the decryption policy address, etc., so that it would be able to check the content within the packet, etc. So this here it would check encryption and decryption. After this, it is going to check application override, and if there is no application override, so it would check for the standard app ID. So in Palo Alto, for most of the services, there is a application. For example, you are doing ping. So for ping is also there is a application Palo Alto. So apart from port, it is checking the application ID as well. So here it would be checking that whether this application ID should be allowed or appropriate application ID is matching or not. So if everything is going well, so it is going to check security policy, where it is going to uh, check the security policy whether required any security policy or not. And after this is going to check the security profile one by one. For example, antivirus and anti-spyware, IPS policy, all those security profile it is going to check on this fourth stage. And after this fourth stage, it is finally doing post policy processing. In this, it is going to re-encrypt the traffic if it has decrypted it. So it is going to re-encrypt, going to apply net policy, and then it is going to forward the packet to the destination. So this is how Palo Alto is working. Now, talking about the interface type, but before talking about the interface type, I would like to show you all those things one by one, which we have talked so far. Okay, so let me just open the Palo Alto firewall right here. So this is Palo Alto firewall. Let me turn on it, both one. So I'm just powering on only those nodes which is required. And if you see the console of firewall, so you can see right here, When you power on the firewall, it is going to power on like in this way. So basically these firewall has a base kernel is a Linux operating system. Okay. However, it has been customized as per vendor requirement. Okay, so it is starting now, and here it is going to prompt you username and password. We need to wait sometimes until all the services get up of Palo Alto. If we're trying to log in initially, okay, let me just type username password. So it is showing incorrect login right now. So initially it takes some times to up all services, and when you immediately trying to log in, it won't be allowed to log in you. So you need to wait at least 2 to 3 minutes so that all services get up. Once all services get up, you would be able to log in here. Let's see the position of other firewall. This is followed to. This is also up, and if I would try to log in here, I won't be. Okay, now I'm able to log in. Okay, so there are few commands you can run. If you want to see interfaces, you can run the command show interface. Okay, if you want to see all interfaces, you can run all interface all command. Okay, if you want to see specific interface, so you can just put the question mark and you can see which interface you want to see. So if you want to see management interface, you can see the management interface only. So you just type management and it is going to show you management interface. So basically if you see the management interface over here, so we have management interface, and management interface is used to access the firewall. So basically when you power on initially any firewall, so by default you would access using a management interface. Okay, so that's the use of management interface. And right now you can see the IP of the management interface is already assigned. So this is 10.0.0.1 and net mask is 25255.255.0. So this is the IP is already assigned. If not assigned, if IP is not assigned, so you can go on the configure mode, and over here you can assign the IP address. So in Palo Alto, if you want to assign IP address, so first of all, uh, since this is the virtual machine, so if you want to set the IP address of any virtual machine, so first of all you need to set its a type static so that you can assign static IP addresses. So you need to run command set device config system and then type static. So this is command where you set the management interface IP address as a static, and then you can set the IP address. So again you can run the device config system. So this is the command to set the IP address, and you can commit anything that you have made as a change. So now commit is running. So once you commit everything, you committed the changes, you can use your machine to access this device. So this is my Windows machine. I would use this machine to access the Palo Alto device. Similarly, I would see whether IP address set to Palo Alto 2 or not. Show interface management. Okay, so IP address is already set.